Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center, Pflugerville, on Halloween Celebration Day. We are celebrating Halloween. We have people in a monk's costume and a fancy dress. We have somebody as a butterfly. It's fun. And somebody is in Hufflepuff, right? And I'm going to take this hat off because it's driving me nuts. So you all have a picture of it anyway. And what we're here today to talk about is there's no thing to be afraid of, which is a major, major conversation. And on Halloween, everybody, it's actually in the Mexican or the Hispanic areas, it's celebrating the Day of the Dead. It's honoring the dead, it's honoring that. And so it cultivates and brings up all kinds of scary type things. And the truth is, there aren't any scary things to be afraid of, and we're going to talk about that today, okay? And first thing I want to do is share a Bible verse with you. Now, I'm going way back. Now, it's not this Bible, but years ago, I was given a Bible by my parents. Now, you need to understand I was raised in a very fundamentalist house. So it was a big deal for me to get a Bible, okay? And in the front of it, there was a conversation or a script from my father. And now I was Bobby, okay? Dear Bobby, and then it went on, I hope you follow these scriptures for the rest of your life. And I'm going to read that. And it's from Romans 8:28. Let me get my glasses on. I'm not used to this road, so I'm going to have to dig inside and find what I should have done this before, right?
Well, you cut it open. It's okay.
Make it easy, right? So, Romans 8. Now, Romans is a letter written by Paul. And please understand that Paul was the carrier of the word of Jesus into the diaspora Jews. That meant the Jews that had traveled out into the other areas of the world at that time, which was around the Middle East, okay? And now, not everybody likes Paul. Well, there's a group of people that feel he's misogynistic. Is that the right word? No, I don't mean you. But it's real interesting to start with. He was a radical. In today's world, he'd be called a radical. You've got to understand that Christianity, back in the beginning, was a radical idea, and the Jews were violently opposed to it. And Paul went out to take the message to the Jews that had left the Jewish community and were out in these other communities. So there was a group in Rome, and he was writing a letter to Rome. Okay? Now, I've got it here somewhere. Romans 8, 38, and 39. Now, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to comment as I go. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor empires, nor armies, nor anything present, nor things to come. Pretty good. Anybody agree? We've got things pretty well nailed down. Okay, and then it goes on. Nor height, nor depth. Okay? Nor anything else created shall be able to separate me from the love of God, which is in the Christ our Lord. Okay? So, it's in the Christ. And within each of us is the Christ, that place where God is. So I'm going to read it again. For I am persuaded that neither life nor death, nor angels, nor empires. So how could angels separate us? Interesting, isn't it? So good things or bad things could separate us. Okay? Anybody agree? Sometimes we like things that we want to go over, and we're doing some things we shouldn't do, but we like it. Okay, so it covers everything. Now, nor height nor depth. So above water, underwater. I don't know whether I agree with that one, but stop and think about what he's saying. And Paul was, as far as we know, one of the real apostles. Now, he wasn't part of the original 12 apostles, but he stopped and think. Paul was actually a huge skeptic, and he was fighting the Jews. He was fighting the Christians. And he was bound and determined to shut down this whole Christian blasphemy. Anybody hear about that kind of conversation in today's world? In other words, we've got to shut them up and don't let them talk. As a matter of fact, he actually persecuted, and there's conversations he might have even killed some rabble-rousers. And understand, Jesus was in that category. But on the road to Damascus, he had a conversation with, who knows, with a divine light, and realized that, hey, this really is a conversation for becoming enlightened, if I can use that terminology. So, here is a man who was one of the biggest skeptics of Christianity that is now going out, and he's actually in jail at some of these conversations. And most of the Christian conversation in today's world is from Paul's teachings, if you want to really, when you go to any church, no, that's incorrect. If you go to generally a fundamentalist church, you'll hear about Paul, because he is the one that brought the message to the Jews. Now, I'm going to get a little bit woo, okay, and I want you to understand we're going there now. Okay, here's the key. There are scary things in life. Everybody agree with that? Right now, there's the nuclear war possibilities. There is very definitely a divide in the conversations in the United States culture. There's a group of people, two groups of people that are fighting each other for domination. And each one feels that the other side is dark. And there are all kinds of mental problems. We've got homeless all over the place, and nobody seems to be able to solve it. So there's a lot of issues we're dealing with. Everybody there? And what we forget is that we are you ready? We are infinite, divine being living in a finite body. Now, because we live in a finite body, everything around us is born, has a beginning, and everything goes somewhere at death. So that's what we think life is, and everything in between, we better have fun doing it, okay? Or take care of it. Now, so I want you to really get this, because we live in a world that is born and then dies and goes away. Okay? And we are told, and we're going into metaphysical, spiritual ideas now, that we are an infinite being that lives forever and ever. We are the Christ. Part of us is divinity. And we are infinite in our conversation. And we're also part of the energy of the universe. Is that the story? Yes. How do we really grasp that? How do we get involved in that? And how come we're way over here scared because we've been told it's going to end someday? Everybody agree death is a big issue. So how come it's a big issue? Because we see nothing beyond that. And we were within this, in some of us, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, and it's over. Oh my God, it better. So that's not true. That's part of the scary things. Now, the ego, the conscious mind, is the thing, and I'm getting this. Anybody familiar with a robot? And a robot does things that are programmed into the memory of the electronic memory of the robot. And electronic memory is, all it does is gives it, actually it's programmed with yes or no, 0 or 1, and it's given as instruction that if it hears this, do this. If it hears this, do that. If it has this experience, do that. And if somebody pushes this button, do this. And what is the human brain? The human brain is accumulation of information. The information is stored in what we call subconscious mind. And then when we are experienced, and as a child, we're born into an environment that we have no idea. We're starting over again. And what happens? We start accumulating data. And the data keeps going into the brain, keeps lodging itself, and keeps building up, so that when we experience this, here's what I know to do this. Okay? And so we are full of, there must be hundreds of thousands of directions in code to do something. So if I'm confronted with somebody angry at me, if I've been trained to be angry back, then I'm going to fight back. And so and really, I'm really going to go a little bit out. If we've been trained that we should earn $10,000 a year, the automatic code says that's what we do, and if I earn more than that, I have to figure out how to not earn that. But that's why people lose money. Right? See, there are a lot of people that lose money in investments. Well, they're there to bring them back to where they think they should be, if you really understand it. Remember I said I was going to get way out. Now, go back to the idea that we're born into a world and we die from that world. Where did we come from when we're born? Do you understand that we haven't identified that? We haven't grasped that. But yet we're infinite as human beings, okay? So where does that come from? Where did we come from? What happened to us before? You know, and I had pictures of me as a little baby. I was cute. But what was there? It was a material body that was ready to be programmed on how to live life. And here I am, maybe some years later, still operating on the programs that I received over those years. Okay, so how come I can't go in and change the program? That's the question. And what keeps me in the beliefs that I've been given? And what keeps me operating the way I operate? What keeps me doing crazy things like putting a costume on for Halloween? Because I've decided to play the game. You see, we've been given a story about here's how life should be. And we have restrictions that hold us into those boundaries. It's called the ego. And you know how the ego keeps us back? Through fear. In other words, if I get a signal that says, oh, we should do this, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to get ahead, then all of a sudden something has to stop me. So why does that occur? Because the programming says, nope, you're not going there, Robert. So fear is the operating code of the ego to hold us in place. Everybody there? And one of the biggest fears is death. Yes? And who says it isn't better on the other side? See, we have no idea. All this stuff is mystical stuff. And we make stories up about what's on the other side. So the ego has created stories of, like, anybody familiar with Dante's Inferno? And that's the popular idea of hell, okay? And there's all these stories we've accumulated. And some of our churches have been very good at promulgating that stuff. And so we operate out of fear. Now, fear is that great energy that cuts down what we're looking for. And so why is Elon Musk able to do what he's able to do? I only pick him out because he's worth billions of dollars. What changes him differently than you or I? Pretty important. Huh? It's really fascinating to me, and this is really why I got involved in this years ago. I was still waiting for the $1,000 bill to put down in the heaven. But the idea is that we are programmed to be who we are. And the scary things that we're talking about here at Halloween, really there's nothing to be afraid of. It's all stories that our mind has made up, and our ego keeps pumping in to keep us from going where we want to go. If that makes any sense. Now, it's really fascinating, and I'm off something I had planned on getting into. And I was talking with Larry, you know, scientifically or astrologically, we know there's a lot of things in the universe. Number one, the universe is infinite. Anybody agree? It's like, you know, we got the Webb telescope now to see things that happened 30 million years ago, okay? And we know that speed light travels at the speed of 186,000 miles per hour. Put that figure in your head, okay? And some of these galaxies are hundreds of light years away because the scientists decided they couldn't measure all that stuff out there, so they started talking in light years. We live in a solar plexus solar system. The solar system is the sun, and if I remember correctly, what is it, Mars, and then us, and there's Jupiter and Uranus and all those planets that circulate. So we live in this vibrant solar system that the sun is firing us, and that's why we have all that grows vegetables. The sun actually keeps us going, okay? And the solar system, the Earth moves around the sun. So at any given time, we are in a totally different place in the universe. My understanding is we're traveling it through the universe in that circle at 30,000 miles an hour, okay? Which means the point from now to now, we already traveled a couple thousand miles. So we are in a totally different environment than we were even 5 seconds ago. Now, on top of that things change. And so there's anybody familiar with what do you call them? Or the symbols, like Aquarius.
Zodiac.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And they change, they shift. The stars and everything shift every 2,000 years approximately. Okay, so we've been going through Pisces, which was the time of Jesus. And now we're going into a new era called Aquarius. Okay, so that changes, and all those influences change. Now, there's on top of that, there's also the master cycle of the galaxy that is traveling through space. Okay, everybody got that? Traveling through space. And it does a full cycle. That full cycle, every 105,000 years, I think, 6,000 years.
Which time are you talking about?
Huh?
It's about 365 billion years through.
Yeah, the full galaxy, okay. But the one that changes, we're going from the Iron Age into the Golden Age. That's 26,000 years.
That's the precession of the equinox.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you understand anyway. Now, these figures are off memory, so they could be totally different. But the idea is we're changing all the time. And we're in a different place in the universe all the time. And we're living in that eternity as part of the energies that are moving. And so we're moving from the Iron Age time into the Golden Age now, and at the same time going into Aquarius. So there's a lot of energy changes going on right now. One of the books I'm reading, Choose Only Love, is saying the veil has been dropped, and we're now more and more people are becoming aware, and communities are going to be gathering together to use the energy to become more aware of who we are. So that's where we are, okay? And it's not time to be afraid, because fear is what holds us back. And there's nobody out there to get us. There's a phrase in the Bible is, if God is for us, who can be against us? Okay? Now, I do want to go into, we mystify Jesus, and I'm going to take this on too. Jesus says a lot of things, okay? And okay. I'm going to go from memory. Jesus has told us that the kingdom of heaven is within. He has told us that you are the light of the world. He has told us that these things I do, ye shall do also. He has said, I have overcome the world. Okay, now, here's back to the conversation. Each of us is an infinite being, spiritual being, living in a human body. The human body is in the material world and is subject to the laws of the material world, which means entropy and all the things. In other words, it wears out. It is not perfect. It has problems. Okay? And it reaches a point where it dies. It does not mean that we die. It does not mean that we have to be afraid. There's that energy within us that knows everything that needs to be done, and it's up to us to go back into the conversation of becoming aware of that energy and who I am. That's the spiritual conversation versus the material conversation. And that's where we lose it. Because we have become dumbed down by fear, by the universe, by the people in our conversation. I think I said last week, we studied with a guy who used to say, you're being controlled by your friends and neighbors, and you won't listen to me. Okay? So the word is, you're a child of God, created in the image and likeness of God. And it's up to us. See, there's nobody out there that's doing anything to us. The universe, the world we live in is creating fear to keep us locked in. Okay, and it's up to us to start a program to understand. That's why Jesus used the metaphor of returning to the Father. The prodigal son idea is that he woke up in a field feeding the pigs, and he was living on the food the pigs ate, and he knew he could return to the Father. And what did the Father do? When the Father knew he was coming, he ran and embraced him. And that's really what's happening here. But it's up to us to wake up in the field and stop feeding the pigs of fear and start the journey home. And we do that. That's why we keep the tools we do. Sherry and Paul had a great Friday. And you just heard about 3 or 4 people, maybe 5 people that were there. And it's a tool is what it is. Meditation. Learning to meditate. And there's no way to do it but do it. And do it over and over until you get better and better at it. Okay? It might last a minute or two the first time you do it. You cannot overlook it. It's part of the program. Reading. Okay, what book are you reading? What TV you're reading? I'm guilty. Okay, not reading what what are you watching? But what goes into the brain, it reinforces what's the old programs. So we need to start putting new programs in, which means let go of the old through birthing, through tapping. There's all kinds of things. That's why we keep at it. Really, meditation is part of that burning out. It slowly changes the consciousness. Okay? So, and I know I'm talking to the choir, but the choir, I'm part of the choir, and I need to hear it every day. It's over and over and over again. And does it get frustrating sometimes? Yes. But that's why we need somebody to encourage us. That's why we need somebody to support us. That's why it's important people be here on Sunday. Also, if you need to talk to a prayer chaplain, for goodness sakes, call prayer chaplain. Because we all need help once in a while. Yes?
So it's super interesting because I feel like Paul is a perfect example of a false idea that we get to let go.
False idea, yeah.
There are only 7 books of the Bible that they actually think that he wrote, and then the rest of them are associates of his.
Yeah.
And if you actually read those letters that he wrote, misogynistic things were actually, whenever he went to a community and he taught the community, and then he left and went to the next community, he would send his workers back out to check on them. So a lot of times his letters were in response to questions that they had.
And there was a lot of
things that they were
doing. Conversation back
and so they were asking him, what about this? What about this? And so he would say, this is my opinion on this answer. And all of that stuff was culture of the time. It was the Jewish culture. And so when you understand that the Bible is not literal, they aren't saying that women should wear head coverings. It's just that's what they did then. They were, and it's just a conversation. So, to me, it's kind of that perfect example of you have this idea about something, whatever it is, right? And when you are willing to kind of let go of that idea, become educated about what is truth, then that's how you set your free. When I talk about being in bondage in my meditation, that's how we're in bondage. We're in
bondage. Bondage is what we're talking about. It really is. Because we are in bondage to thoughts that we don't know. And somebody put them there years ago. Okay, and we're still operating on the bondage that's there. And anybody have a computer that gets messed up? I had a computer shut down. No way to get that thing started. I had to start over again. And that's what we're dealing with, is the computer has been corrupted right in the beginning by the world around us, and the world has created a program called the ego that's here to hold us back. Okay? And Paul's a perfect example. There's also Paul's an example that anybody can be changed. See, it's not too late. I don't care where you are, what you are, how old you are, or whatever you are. Okay? The kingdom of heaven is within. It's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. You, me, we have to say, okay, and do the work that's necessary to accept it. The biggest situation, and Valerie was dealing with this in her meditation, is understanding that you are an expression of God. And that's so foreign to the conversation. Oh my God, don't go there, that's blasphemy. Well, it ain't true. It's true is you are a child of God. Okay, and I'm going to end with that. I've got at least 3 more pages of stuff. I do want to say, one of the ends is decide to be happy. Decide to be, the ideas of being productive. Decide to get out in the world. Get out of the cotton-picking bunkers we've been hiding in for 2-3 years and for life, and go out and participate. That's one of the reasons why we're getting involved in the foster care program, because it's time to get out into the community. Okay, so God bless you. I can't wait to get this robe off.
Robert, can I offer one
What?
tiny thought? Can I offer
Yeah.
one? I was really struck from the beginning with the reading from Romans. I'm sure I've looked at it a million times,
Yep.
but today it strikes me as the paramount definition of unconditional love.
Yeah.
And we tend to think of, am I being unconditionally loving? But the reality is, if we just accept that divine love is unconditional, accept it for us, accept it for everybody else, it becomes a different, unconditional love becomes a different thing.
Yeah.
And what struck me about it this morning is it doesn't say, if we do this,
No.
if we behave
No.
this way, if we this, then we will not be separated from the love of God. It simply says, we are not separated.
Yeah.
No matter how good you are in the eyes of the world, no matter how lacking you are in the
No.
eyes of the world, it's not maybe you won't be separated if you're strong enough. It's the reality.
See, the reality is you're a child of God. And part of that is being willing to feel what you're feeling and make it okay to let it go. That's why what they're doing is so important on these Friday nights. And what we do it on New Year's Eve, but why wait until the end of the year? Anybody agree nobody wants to throw the garbage out? But yet that's what we're talking about. We're starting over again, changing the code. And some of the stuff I don't want to look at, but part of me has to go back and say, look at that. And be willing to experience it and let it go. Because it's unconditional love. It's not going to affect me or anybody else.
It's like your computer. It's time to upgrade your operating system.
Yep. Okay, anybody
Is it
else?
free upgrades?
Absolutely.
What
Infinite.
is it? What it would be life skills 20.0 or something? Anybody else? Larry, you're rocking over there.
Or you just made me think, when I work with flower essences, you don't have to look at the stuff. The flower essences magically work you through it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see, you gotta understand, we got all kinds of tools. And we need, frankly, we need people, and we need people willing to participate. Because Larry can't do it by himself. It's just like these folks can't do it by themselves. Okay, thank you. So you're getting ready to do that, huh?
Yes.
Okay, I love you. I'm finished.
Thanks, Robert.